Good evening, everyone. This is the Common Council meeting for Tuesday, August 26th. And I'll call the meeting to order. We have a quorum, and please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of
the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item C is to identify any possible conflicts of interest. Do we have any conflicts of interest tonight on the phone? I don't see any, so we'll move on to item D, which is the public comment period. This time, the mayor will recognize persons in attendance wishing to address the council. On recognition by the mayor, persons may address the council, first stating their name and address. Comments will be limited to no more than 5 minutes, and persons are asked to be respectful when addressing the council. No action will be taken regarding items not on the agenda. However, council will take comments from the public under advisement. Please note that council members will not respond to your comments or questions. Okay, we have a few people tonight. First up is Tom Butke. Tom. Can you push the button on the microphone? You remember how to do that?
I used to do that.
I know.
I'm here, as some of you know, 22 years on the council. I'm here to speak about the communication committee. And a number of years ago, I was chairman of that committee. And at that time, we hired Tom Laut. One of the best things that happened to us. And then a few years later, David came on, and they really do a lot in the community and keeping citizens knowing what's going on in the city. We had complaints. I remember Jason Zaleski, when he was on the council, he told me before he left, he says, Tom, make sure that you have the communication that we can talk and let the citizens know what's going on. And that did happen. The citizens, you know, it's always hard for citizens to find out, but I think at this time now, I think it's more important and more citizens are getting involved, listening and watching you guys and ladies. So I guess what I'm saying is I know there's going to be some discussion about the communication committee, and I would just ask that you may make some tweaks to it, but the two people that we have, plus the volunteer Angie, do a wonderful job. So hopefully you would keep that in mind, and the citizens especially like that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Next up is Pete Lotzer.
Do I have to? Oh, yeah. Okay. Good evening. Pete Lotzer, 1209 East 25th Street, Marshfield. Member of the Communications Committee. Just here again in support of what we're trying to do with the committee and keeping the two staff members on board and really looking at the importance of those two positions and what has become, like Tom had mentioned, with the city and the transparency that it has now brought and the amount of information we're now feeding out to the public. So I just ask that the Common Council really listens to what Tom is going to present tonight and make sure you get the information correct and really look at this seriously and look at hopefully trying to really move Tom's position into a general budget situation for the city. We all know that the franchise fees are drastically changing and they're going to continue to change. It's the reality. We're just not getting that money anymore, and to think that that's going to continue and still grow is not going to happen. So we just need to really look at that deep. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Pete. Evan Dayton.
Evan Dayton, 2007 East Becker Road. So it's been a little less than a year. I stood in front of you guys speaking regarding the franchise fees dwindling rapidly and warning you the budget was going to fall short as time went on. Yet here we are tonight looking at possible chances that we will be cutting part of the communication services that are being provided to the public. In a time when transparency is the #1 priority to the public and those that watch you guys do what you do, we need to keep in mind if we are taking away services, that's less the public knows, which means more of public unwillingness, well, not unwillingness, but disdain with what could possibly happen, frustration, anything going on. We need to keep in mind having Tom's position brought into the main line would only sustain it for longer, but also help balance things out. As we know, equipment does not last forever as what we need. So within time, when communications from the city needs to be consistent, transparency should be the forefront of this discussion tonight. And I hope the right choice is made for the public's sake. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. Next up is Bill Pinker.
Good evening, Bill Penker, 600 Sycamore. I have two concerns this evening. When I reviewed the agenda for tonight's meeting, I was disappointed when I did not find listed on the agenda another presentation about data centers. I think we all know that when you're talking about data centers today, the opinions and the information just covers a very wide spectrum. And we need to hear from one end, we need to hear from the other, we need to hear what's in the middle. And I ask that in the future, we have some additional presentations about data centers. My second concern is the proposed ordinance number 1547, which, if approved, would impose a $30 municipal vehicle registration tax, which would begin on January 1, 2027. Now, following the presentation made by Alderman Kranz last month, I obtained information from the Wisconsin Division of Motor Vehicles. And quoting the DMV, Wisconsin law allows a town, village, city, or county to collect an annual municipal or county vehicle registration fee in addition to the regular annual registration fee paid for a vehicle. Of note is that the term wheel tax first appears only in parentheses, though when you go through the DMV material I have, wheel tax was mentioned 10 times and fee was mentioned 10 times. Now, with the information that I've got, I can tell you how many municipalities and counties assess a wheel tax, and that's using the term from the ordinance. I can tell you who they are. I can tell you how much each does. I can tell you what the average fee, what the median fee, which vehicles are exempt, and anticipated fee income for multiple options for the city of Marshfield. Now, I'm not going to go through that. The important point is what's in the ordinance. The proposed ordinance uses the term fee 4 times and it uses the term tax 2 times. What is being discussed? Is this a fee or is this a tax? If it's a fee, I suggest it must be evaluated against other fees that are being proposed, both in the near term and in the future. If it is a tax, and everybody loves taxes, should it be your decision or should it be a referendum decision to decide approval or disapproval for that ordinance? And I ask you to please delay any decision until the public has had adequate time to form questions and opinions, positions both for and against this. In addition, the public deserves to have, beyond TV broadcast, a website, a social media post, they deserve to have printed material. I obtained, this is multiple pages I obtained from a city that happens to use a wheel tax or alternate registration fee. We need something like that. And I think if you're going to do a second reading and potential vote at your next regularly scheduled meeting, that's too short. The public deserves information that they can actually have in hand, take a look at, do their own research, and get back to you. So please delay any consideration. Thank you much.
Thank you, Bill. Next up is Jacob Craney.
Evening. My name is Jacob Craney, and we reside at myself and Hannah Dearner, 404 South Cherry. However, we also own the property at 801 West McMillan, 803 West McMillan, 805 West McMillan, and 807 West McMillan. So I'm here to speak on the de-annexation that is up for consideration on tonight's agenda. From a business perspective, I'm against it. We have some, I guess the issue would be is we have different opinion from the developer. We have paid for a large amount of land over there, facing McMillan, the entirety of the land, in fact, from 801 to 901. The last lot has not been signed over to us, going on 9 months now. Last September, we paid for an additional 44 feet behind the house that every city map, every sign down St. Joe's, every presentation or map created to the city shows that 44 feet on there, yet the GIS map has yet to be updated with Marathon County for over a year, which we just discovered a couple weeks ago. Additionally, we purchased 20 feet by 517 feet that has been paid for. That has not been turned over yet. So from a business standpoint, I'm against the de-annexation because that will only confuse this process moving forward. Wisconsin statute 23631 gives the city of Marshfield full authority over this matter to do an injunction, investigate the developer, investigate the payments, put a halt on that, or do anything moving forward with that land, which is what I think should happen to that land until this gets resolved and a review by the city lawyer is done. From a public citizen standpoint, the land was bought in Marshfield. It was bought as city property. We're sitting here discussing a wheel tax and other things, and we're discussing de-annexing land, which I think is silly. In a meeting last Monday with Jeff, or 2 Mondays ago, I was told once we get through this de-annexation process, he promises to sign the land over to us. He promised the following day on that Tuesday that he would get that 44 feet signed over to us. That hasn't happened. I asked him why the delay on the remaining lot. And he said, then I'll be landlocked, which I said, you're already landlocked. We just haven't taken you to court over it yet. So I don't know what the issue is there, but all I can do is present the facts. We have a total of $206,000 in accountable payments via check, cashier's checks, personal checks that are all verifiable, cashed by Jeff Hill and Roxy Properties. We have the map created on September 14th or September 24th of 2025, after we made the final agreement on the 4th lot, where Jeff got it redrawn, shown as CSM2, all as one lot. It shows the 44 feet behind the house which we bought. Signed agreement by Jeff saying paid in full for that land as described on that CSM I had made but never recorded. Additionally, we have from last month when we met a map that shows the proposed road coming off McMillan in an attempt to, if we would resell him some land or trade some land. Note it shows the 44 feet. Note it shows the 20 feet. The dotted line would be his proposed trade for this land, which did not equal enough for us to say yes to, so we declined that offer. That was 6 weeks ago. Since that time, no action has been taken. No land's been signed over to us. And it's just been simply delay. So I'm hoping the city does not de-annex that land to make any further complications for us. I'd like to point out, me and Hannah are tax-paying citizens of Marshfield. We have 3 properties in Marshfield. I'm hoping that the city backs us on this. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. And last but not least, Nicole Johnson.
Hi, Nicole Johnson, first time, or longtime follower, first time talker. I usually go to this school board. 112057 Winterberry Circle. I don't really like, we have to say our address. Okay. I was expecting protesters from Marshfield Pride, and I don't know that I see who I expected to see here today, so bear with me if some of this sounds weird. This past weekend, I attended Marshfield Pride for another beautiful event. We've had many over the years, and I've been to all of them, and they are fantastic. If you've never been, you should totally go. It's my favorite event in the town, filled with so much love and joy and camaraderie, and overall happiness. People come from all across the state, and probably further than that, and impressed that that a town the size of Marshfield would have such a good Pride event. I have nothing to do with the planning of it, and they did a wonderful job. The plaza was clearly marked with rainbows all around, so you knew what was going on there if you wanted to enter or you did not. But what I saw was that there was so many people that came to this event knowing what they were coming to. There was at least 3 faith communities represented at booths. There were multiple pastors from denominations you can find in every community walking around, sharing love and combating the hate they had to walk through to get into the event. There were food trucks and vendors and musical acts and a book reading by a Wisconsin author. There was drag bingo and a drag show that I know is what usually gets the most hoopla, but it's also what gets the biggest crowd. People love the drag shows. And once again, it was voluntarily attended. So many people came to have a good time and knew what they were coming for. That they were coming from Marshfield Pride and that people were bringing their young children, and heck, a lot of times it's the children that are dragging their parents to the event saying, you gotta come and check this out and support me, or it's just a fun time, because it really is. The only problem I ever see at this event is the protesters that are blocking the entrances. What people have to walk through to get into the park is ridiculous. And this year, the ante was upped. There was people who were protesting abortion, and they had big signs of bloody babies. And that is not what anyone was coming to see when they come to Marshfield Pride. I tried to calmly talk to one of them and say, hey, could you please lower your sign? This is not appropriate for children to see. Her reaction was, drag queens aren't appropriate for children to see. And like, drag queens aren't covered in blood, and people knew what they were coming for. They weren't coming to see a baby like that. And when she yelled at me again, I just walked away. Later, my girlfriend tried to ask them to stop blocking the sidewalk. And they're like, oh, are we playing football? I'm blocking it. And just the utter disrespect was awful for what a great event that is. Anyway, one more of that was that I was standing at my church booth when I saw a young middle schooler walking up to me. She's walking towards the booth, but just staring at these signs and looked terrified. And I'm like, don't look, don't look, don't look. You're safe here. Come here. Don't look. And got her to come over and stop looking at them. Now, I don't think the people with those signs were from here. I know a certain person who often comes and talks about us and likes to come to all the fun events in town and protest people having fun, was doing his normal things of yelling at people and taking pictures of young children that he posts on his Facebook page to say, I can't believe they're there. But they were there with their parents' consent. Anyway, I just wanted you to hear from an active, involved community member. I'm a leader in a couple different organizations in town. Like I said, I go to the school board meetings all the time. That you should come to Marshfield Pride. It was a great event. Join us. Check it out, even if you're not interested in the community, whatever. There's some good food, there's some good times. See what it is and don't listen to the hoopla. Watch a drag show, see how much fun people have there. And also, since I'm done with this, please rethink having to say our addresses. I know a lot of people who want to come and talk but are terrified of saying their address, sometimes because of those protesters. If they're coming and yelling at us in town, I don't want them knowing where I live. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item E is approval of the minutes of the August 11th, 2026 meeting. Ms. Dallas, your motion.
Motion to approve the minutes of August 11th, 2026.
And Mr. Pryor, you second that. Is there any discussion on the minutes from that meeting and corrections to be made? Seeing none, please vote. And that motion passes. Item F is staff updates.
I'm not aware of any this evening.
Okay, we're moving along. Item G is mayor's comments. The only comment I would have today is that this week is Fair Week. So please try to get out and support the Central Wisconsin State Fair. I was already out there early this morning and they were already judging animals of some sort. But the food booths weren't open when I was there. I was disappointed there. The other thing to keep in mind is, I don't see any kids here, but school starts this week. So please drive safely in the school zones. Item H, council comments. Any members of the council? Okay. Item I, city administrators.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I have for tonight, you may recall back on July 28th, the council gave its approval to moving forward to the bond issue with our annual borrowing for streets, oftentimes other projects as well. And this time, part 2 of the police department relocation program. But we got a very good series of bids. The low bid was 3.9%. It's going to save us a lot of money, over $250,000 over the life of that bond repayment. We want to thank Ellers, our financial advisor, who does a great job, and Corals as bond counsel does well. And again, thanks to our own finance staff. So it turned out very well. I just wanted to report that to you tonight.
Thank you.
Yep.
Item J is reports from commissions, boards, and committees. Anybody here from commissions, boards, and committees? Item K is the consent agenda that you have before you. Mr. Giles, your motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
And Mr. Rigel, you second that?
I do.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? I see none, please vote. And that motion. There were no items removed, so we'll move on to item M. Presentation on a proposed development of the former Weinbrenner facility located at 305 West 3rd Street, presented by Joe Dunn, Vice President of Development and Asset Management for Sarah Nova Development. Go ahead, sir.
Take it away, Joe.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. Well, thank you. I'm glad to be back at the council meeting. I think it's been probably a year since I attended, and we remain at, so J. Jeffers Company is, we've rebranded a little bit as Sarah Nova Development, but it's still the same group. We're still J. Jeffers, and we remain excited about the opportunity at the Weinbrenner Shoe Company property, and look forward to working with the city on the redevelopment plan. Steve, should I just start the
Yeah, I think that would be fun.
presentation?
I think that'd be great, Joe. I think just go right ahead.
All right, let me get it queued up here. And then I'll have to do a screen share. Can you see that?
Not yet.
Oh, there we go. I'll have to figure out, I've jumped ahead one slide. Can you see that now?
Yep, looks good.
So just starting off here, just reintroducing our company. J. Jeffers is founded in 2012, and we're a mission-driven real estate development company. One of the principal areas we focus on is historic renovations and preservation of historic buildings, and working with the National Park Service and historic tax credits, which is one of the key elements that attracted us to the Weinbrenner property. We'll overview of our development principles, sustainability, again, the historic rehab, energy efficient mechanicals, et cetera. Social impact and governance are very important to us as a company and us as individuals. Our vision for the building, as a refresher, we believe 83 new residential apartments can be constructed within the existing building. And our preliminary layouts are for 34 one-bedroom, 46 two-bedroom, and 3 three-bedroom apartments. And those would range from $925 a month for the one bedrooms up to approximately $1,271 a month for the three bedrooms. As you're aware, we've proposed that this be affordable housing utilizing tax credits. So these rents in these apartments would be affordable to residents at 60% of county median income. And for 2026, that's $40,320 for an individual and $57,600 for a family of four. Our total estimated development cost is $31 million to renovate the building and convert it into the rental apartments. So the project schedule and critical path to move forward for this. We would be applying to WIDA. The intent would be to apply to the Wisconsin Housing and Economic Development Authority at the end of the year for their competitive round of tax credits. This is a little screenshot from their qualified allocation plan around the schedule for the funding cycles they have. So the first step would be the project concept submission on November 2nd. If that is approved, the next step would be the full application submission in February 5th of 2027. In order to get there for November 2nd, what we'll need to submit is a project, and the project concept is relatively straightforward. Project narrative, proposed unit mix, site control, and then a development team overview and experience forms. The key components here with the proposed unit mix are that we'll need to have an initial design. We've looked at it. We have an in-house architect who's done some initial layouts, but we'll need to engage an actual architect firm to do the initial design so that we can be confident we'll deliver the number of units that we think will fit. WIDA does not allow for a reduction in unit count after the project concept approval. So if we were to go in with 83 units and find out we can only fit 80 with the spacing of columns, et cetera, you'd be restarting or trying to get their waiver on that. And at that stage, there's enough competitive applications that I don't think the waiver would be possible. So we need to engage our architect as soon as possible in September in order for them to begin work and confirm the total unit count. Site control, I think, is pretty straightforward. We'll just have to have an agreement with the city, whether that's a purchase and sale agreement or an option agreement or another document demonstrating site control. I believe we have the exclusive right to negotiate that we've executed with the city, so that may serve for that. But as we get into preparing that submittal, we might need to refine the site control. Looking ahead to February 5th, assuming that the project concept would be approved, WIDA has not published yet the full application submission requirements for 2027. They have their QAP out, and they're finalizing the rest of the documents. But the full application will require architectural plans at the schematic design phase, along with third-party reports like a market study, environmental reports, et cetera. And those all have to be dated within a certain, I think it's 6 months prior to application. They have each of those reports is what they consider a lifetime before they are stale. But the longest lead time item is those architectural plans, which need to incorporate WIDA's design requirements and energy efficiency requirements. WIDA has typically, they're not extreme, it's a checklist, but there are design requirements that go beyond your basic building code requirements for accessibility, for tenant storage, and a number of other items. So our critical path for a successful application is commencing architect and engineering design in September 2026, and that's right around the corner. And that requires pre-development funding. We're looking for a commitment from the city for $100,000 to get that kicked off. The site control, which we have the agreement with the city already, that may suffice, but if we need to negotiate a further document there, we have the time and the run up to the application to do so. And then the next critical step is identifying additional pre-development funding to get the full application completed. We're estimating that total pre-development costs through groundbreaking would be approximately $1 million, and that's inclusive of tax credit reservation fees and bond commitment fees to WIDA. This is our initial budgeting. Bulk of it is design documents, some of the third-party reports, but then down here towards the bottom, we get into the WIDA fees, and once they give you the award, they want to be paid within 10 days, and there is no waiver on that. We've tried on other projects. So I guess the question is, what do we need to move forward? And that's, or what are we asking for from the city of Marshfield? So that would be a commitment to sell the building for $1 to the development partnership. That sale wouldn't occur until all the financing's in place and we close and break ground. We're looking for a commitment from the city of PAYGO TIF funding to assist in the financing of the project of approximately $1 million. And we've estimated that at 75% of the TIF increment over 20 years from the real estate taxes generated by the building. We're requesting a commitment from the city of $100,000 for pre-development costs to advance the funding application. And finally, a commitment to work collaboratively on securing additional sources of project and pre-development funding, whether that's grants or home funds from the state or other similar sources. And then this is a refresher. We presented this previously, but like I said, we haven't been here for about a year. This is the general layout of how we think the units could fit in the building and on-site parking. This is the ground floor, and then there would be the upper stories in the multi-story, the original part of the factory building before the additions. And with that, that's my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Dunn? Ms. Spiros?
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Can you go back and show us the last two slides? I was looking to see if you had parking marked out on either of those.
Sure. I gotta figure out how to go backwards. Nope. Hang on. Let me restart the slideshow.
Sorry.
That's all right. My children mock my technological.
My children mock mine too, so don't feel bad.
All right. So we'll get through. So what we were showing is we can fit 52 surface stalls on the site. And I know in the past we've discussed parking as something that needs to be addressed for the building. I think as the design advances, we'd be able to refine the actual number of spaces here with the survey and the architects, and then we'd want to coordinate with the city on how we allocate additional parking for the building.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, if I can add on to that, what Joe said, we were talking as a staff today, some of us earlier, about the need for additional parking, and Joe's mentioned this. We're looking at options, in areas adjacent to the actual site that might be able to carve out some more spaces to provide the best parking opportunity for this project that we can. So nothing finalized, but just some ideas.
Thank you, Steve. Mr. Brand.
Can you give us a refresher on how competitive the WIDA grants are? I mean, what the likelihood of us submitting it and actually getting the grant funding?
Sure. I'm going to stop the screen share if that's all right. We can come back if necessary. It's very competitive. It changes year to year. I want to say 2 years ago, and WIDA changes their, every 2 years they change their QAP. So the 25-26 QAP had a rural set aside. So had we been applying in either of those years, we would have come in as a rural project. I think there were either, and there was at most 2 in 2025 in the rural set aside. There were more in 2026, but I don't think, so it was more competitive in 2026. In 2027, they've eliminated that set aside. So they do have other priorities that I think would make our project, would help with the competitiveness of our project. But it's absolutely a competitive process. They have a scoring sheet, if you will, where you need to hit certain things like energy efficiency, the population you're serving, et cetera. We've been successful at Jeffers. I think just in the last round last year, we did secure a competitive award of the state 4% tax credits, which is what we'd be pursuing here. So I think while it is competitive, this project has a lot going for it. And I think that we've been able to, we work well with the WIDA staff and we understand their application process. So I think we'd have very strong likelihood of a competitive award. And the project concept, I consider that to be pro forma. We'll get that submitted and will be approved for the full submittal.
Mr. Rigel.
Thank you. Just to highlight this and highlight it. Those two, the last 2 slides you showed that had the designs, those are just conceptual. That's not set in stone. That's nothing of the sort. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. That's conceptual. That's myself and John Donahue from our office and some other staff sitting down with the survey and the documents that came with the RFP and trying to figure out what could fit dimensionally in the building and high concept, and that's what needs to be refined with an AE firm that would actually come out and measure the building and sometimes they'll go through with they have a scanner that they can turn on and it gets the actual interior dimensions and they'll know where all the columns are, et cetera. And then they would be able to put together an accurate layout of what could fit.
Right, so in theory, this could be night and day different by the time the project's done, correct?
No, I don't think it would be night and day different. The 3-story building is pretty straightforward. A lot of and I can share again. Let me get this.
No, I mean, it's just a quick question. You need to show it. I'm just trying to highlight the fact that this isn't a final design and that it can change significantly throughout the process.
It can change. I wouldn't expect it to be significant. A lot of what will drive the unit layouts is the column spacing, the windows, needing to, sort of fit a unit in where a unit fits as the residents have windows and sunlight, et cetera. So,
gotcha. Thank you.
Some components that could change. I think that the 1-story additions are probably where there would be more, a greater chance of it looking different from this initial layout.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Any other questions? Thank you, Joe. As we move along, we'll see you again, I'm sure.
All right. Great.
Thanks, Joe.
You're very welcome. Any need to hang out or I'm good for
No,
you?
I don't think so. I can talk to you tomorrow and we can talk in the future about next steps.
Great. All right. Thank you all. I appreciate the opportunity to be back with you and enjoy the rest of the meeting.
Thanks a lot.
There was no recommended action. That was for
Correct.
information only.
Correct.
Item N is a request to approve a budget resolution number 20-2026, the Braham Park Capital Project, presented by Justin Casperson, Parks and Recreation Director.
Good evening and thank you. Staff is requesting approval of Budget Resolution 20-2026 to reallocate $32,000 from the Park Amenities Project to the Braham Park Restroom Project. The additional funding would provide enough money for contingency, architectural and engineering services, and other related costs. I think most of you are aware of the Braham Park projects and what's going on. The next step is the restroom building. Last week, the Board of Public Works approved the low bid of Marwood Construction in the amount of $185,000, contingent upon the support of this budget resolution. The work includes the demo of the existing building, extensions of water, sewer, electric, construction of the new building foundation, and all site restoration. Now, the financial impact. The approved capital improvement plan includes $315,000 for Braham Park restrooms. The restroom building was previously approved for the purchase cost of $129,000. Combine that with Marwood's low bid of $185,000, the total project comes up to $314,000, leaving only $379 for architectural engineering services, contingency, and other project-related costs. Because the project budgets do not provide enough funding for these remaining expenses, staff recommends using the money from the Park Amenities Project in the amount not to exceed $32,000. Earlier this year and during the city's strategic planning process, Braham Park redevelopment ranked very high. Given the priority on the development and the progress already made, staff believes it would be appropriate to reallocate these $32,000 from the Park Amenity Project to the Braham Park Restroom Project. Last week, the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee reviewed and approved the budget resolution and sends forth a positive recommendation. Tonight, we're looking for authority or approval to reallocate the $32,000 in the budget resolution 20-2026.
Ms. Dallas, you have a motion.
Yep, I motion to approve budget resolution 20-2026.
And Mr. Pryor, you second that? Discussion. Seeing none, please vote. And that motion passes. Item O is the first reading of ordinance number 1547, creating section 4-40 of the Marshfield Municipal Code relating to vehicle registration fees in accordance with Wisconsin statutes, chapter 34135. Presented by Jennifer Selensky, Finance Director, and I think Josh. Too.
All right, good evening. Tonight, we are going to be introducing you to ordinance number 1547 regarding a vehicle registration fee. I will be joined by the Director of Public Works, Josh Moritz, throughout this presentation. First of all, the agenda for this part of tonight's meeting is first the presentation. We'll have a first reading and discussion of the ordinance proposing a $25 vehicle registration fee. That is a little bit different than what you saw in your packet. As Public Works Director Moritz and I have been refining and researching the topic, and we're now proposing a $25 fee. And then final adoption action is not requested tonight at this meeting. We'll begin with defining what our dollars really are. So a tax is a mandatory charge that's authorized by law and imposed by the city to raise revenue for public purposes. A fee is a charge authorized by law and imposed in connection with a particular activity, privilege, service, registration, or program. This proposal is a state-authorized municipal vehicle registration fee that is collected by the Wisconsin Department of Transportation with its vehicle registrations that must be used for transportation-related services. So how we could compare our property tax with this vehicle registration fee in terms of who pays, a property tax is paid by owners of property. The vehicle registration fee is paid by owners of eligible vehicles. Not every vehicle is subject to this tax. There's a laundry list of exemptions within the statute itself, and if we need further information on that, I can provide you, but the registration fee is generally applicable to automobiles and light trucks. The basis for the property tax is the value of your real estate. The basis for the registration fee is a flat amount per eligible vehicle registration. The property tax is collected annually on the local tax roll by this office and Marathon and Wood counties. The registration fee is collected by the Wisconsin Department of Transportation at the time a vehicle is registered and renewed. The purpose of our property tax is to fund broad governmental purposes, administration, public safety, parks and recreation, culture. The purpose of the vehicle registration fee is restricted to transportation-related purposes only. The relationship to a property tax is generally not tied to an individual activity, whereas the registration fee is tied to the privilege of registering and operating an eligible vehicle. If we step back and take a look at all of our state-provided local aids and revenue sharing, we get a general transportation aid that we use on such things as winter maintenance, roadside care, traffic control, road construction and design, and off-road support for storm sewers, street lighting, and the like. We also are eligible to apply for competitive grants from the state for local roads or small structures or transportation alternatives, etc. When it comes to actually funding our projects, we do have available the federal, state, and county grants. We have our state aids in terms of general transportation aids and shared revenue. We also fund our transportation needs through debt, property and room tax. Now this could relate specifically to roads or trails within our park system. Room tax funds park improvements, and therefore some of that money is spent on improving the trails there. Special assessments, donations we have also received donations for such things as trails. And then we also have our and use tax increment financing, and that would be for anything that has been authorized in a TIF plan, such as our recent road construction in our TIF district number 13. Options for funding that are currently not in use would be a vehicle registration fee, which is allowable by Wisconsin Statute 341.35, and a transportation impact fee, which is allowable by Wisconsin Statute 66.0617. How we spend our money, I'm going to invite Josh up to take the next few slides.
Thank you. So yeah, the next few slides, I'm going to walk through our general transportation, construction, and maintenance operations. So this slide breaks it down into capital projects, which you can think of major reconstructions. It includes our asphalt paving program, so asphalt overlays, pulverize and repave projects, and that type of thing. Our maintenance operations on our roadways are primarily crack filling and joint sealing. In years past, we used to use a chip seal on some of our asphalt streets. We've transitioned a little bit away from that to other types of surface treatments. So I'm going to advance this and kind of show you a breakdown of some of this. Just high level, just to give you an overview of how pavement deteriorates. On the left-hand side of this graph, that's when a roadway is built. It's should be in excellent condition. And over the years, as you move to the right, the condition of that road slowly drops off. And at kind of the older it gets, the more earlier deterioration, that rate of deterioration really speeds up. So if we can start to maintain these roads sooner in their lifespan, we can prevent some of the more costly repairs that are incurred when you wait until the street is so far gone it needs to be reconstructed or some other more expensive rehabilitation strategy. So you can look at the top third of this basically as preventive maintenance, top 2/3. And like the slide says, some of the rate of deterioration is affected by the amount of traffic, weather, certainly subgrade strength. That goes along with drainage issues. If we can keep the water out, that'll drastically improve the pavement's lifespan. And also, how much proactive maintenance have we done? That can really extend the life of pavement. So this graph is actually live data from our pavement management system that shows this big picture. The bottom or the left 3 bars, the percentages are the percentage of our total roadway length that's rated. We have a pavement rating system of 1 through 10, 1 being reconstruct and 10 being more or less brand new. They're rated every other year and submitted to Department of Transportation. So you can see from a capital improvement standpoint, that's the 3 columns on the left. And those are typically what you've seen with full-blown reconstruction projects or with our asphalt pavement program. As we move to the right-hand side of this graph, the surface treatments I mentioned could be chip seal or something else that we've transitioned to a asphalt rejuvenator, and also crack fill and joint sealing. So a lot of these maintenance strategies or reconstruction strategies are based on the pavement rating that our own staff assesses every year. So you can see from this about 77% of our entire roadway system has a need of some sort. Approximately 16% of that length is in need of a capital improvement, and 61% is in need of some maintenance. What's not shown on this chart are pavements rated 8, 9, or 10, which generally require very little to no maintenance. This was a good way to illustrate, I guess, kind of bang for your buck. So the bar on the left-hand side shows that we have 21 miles of roads that need some sort of capital improvement, estimated to cost $28 million. The right-hand side, we have 76 miles or so that need some level of maintenance, totaling about $1.7 million. So you can see we really get better bang for the buck by spending smaller amounts earlier in the lifespan of pavements. So I want to focus on the maintenance projects need on the right-hand side of this. Like I said, our maintenance practices really are crack fill and joint seal that cost roughly $850 a block. We try to do that. We're on pace to do it about a 7-year interval, which is considered, that's a good interval that works for us and works for our pavements. We've also done some asphalt rejuvenator, about that same price, $850 or so a block. And that can give us about a 10-year interval. And the chip seal or seal coat that we used to do was a little more expensive, but also gave us kind of a 10-year interval till it needed a further surface treatment. Just real quickly on the left-hand side, a full reconstruction project, not including the sanitary sewer or the water main, ends up to be about $340,000 for a block of city street. So considerably more than $850 for a crack fill project. The other items, pulverize and repave, about $66,000 per block, an overlay about $43,000 per block, and a mill and repave is kind of similar to an overlay, but $41,000 for a block. This is simply a map. Everything in yellow shows kind of maintenance needs over the next 5-year period. And in green show capital needs. So you can see the streets we've already are in the works, like East 4th Street, South Vine Avenue, West 5th Street. These are already projects that are being planned as reconstruction. And so this is kind of a snapshot of where we stand today. And so we'll go on to talk about the maintenance component primarily. I'll turn it back over to Jennifer.
So the main question is why additional transportation revenue is being considered. If we look back over our history for the last 2 decades, levy limits were first enacted in 2005, and they were made permanent in 2011. Now, in those interim years, there was a bit of an inflation or CPI allowable component to the levy limit, but that was permanently eliminated in 2011. So at that point, the only way we could increase our general fund property tax revenue was by the percentage of our net new construction. This factor does not keep pace with inflation. Also, the levy limit does not apply to general obligation debt payments. So in a little bit, we'll get to a slide that kind of demonstrates we were paying for our crack seal or our seal coat and crack filling program in the early 2000s and into the later 2000s by with the general fund money. So as time progressed under levy limits, that hasn't been able to be sustained. We also have stagnant state aids when it comes to general transportation aids. I think we've received less than a $500,000 increase in our annual aid since 2005. Also, there are a limited number of revenue alternatives available. In the past, we've explored a transportation utility, which has been challenged and has been deemed not allowable. So without additional recurring revenue, we must increase debt or defer our transportation maintenance. This is a slide that demonstrates the actual amounts that we have borrowed since 2017, which was the first time I can find in our history where we borrowed for this program. We started out with $150,000, and that has progressed to 2021 to $400,000. And that was at that time in our CPI, or excuse me, our capital improvement plan, we had anticipated using $400,000 annually. However, as all of the competing projects get evaluated, this particular line item in our CIP plan has been reduced every year thereafter. So over the course of this time period, we have borrowed $3 million to support seal coating and crack filling. The interest cost column that you see represents the amount of interest that we will pay over the life of that debt for each year. So some of that debt is 10 years, some of that debt is 20 year. And the first 2 years are estimated. 2019 through 2026 were provided by Ellers, who was our advisor during those years. We had a previous advisor, so I've estimated the cost of that interest based on the rates at the time. The authority, as I mentioned earlier, is granted in statute. This is a tool that we are allowed to use to help fund our transportation needs. A summary of that statute is that we may adopt a flat fee. The fee applies to eligible automobiles and qualifying trucks that are customarily kept within the city. The Wisconsin Department of Transportation collects the fee when vehicles are first registered or renewed, and those fees may only be used for transportation-related purposes. Each of these requirements is detailed in the proposed ordinance number 1547 that was drafted by the city's legal counsel. If we were to enact this fee, the timeline that is outlined here would set us up to begin receiving the fee in 2027 and would correlate with our CIP plan for that year. So tonight we're at the first reading of the ordinance. We could progress to a second reading either on September 8th or September 22nd. At the very least, the Wisconsin Department of Transportation needs proper notification no later than October 1 if we are going to enact the ordinance as of January 1 of 2027. The DOT then remits those collected fees to the city within 30 days after the previous month. So our first potential receipt would come in at the end, by the end of February. This is a slide that demonstrates what we currently have proposed in the 27 through 2031 CIP program. We in 27 and 28, just due to all of the nature of the projects that are listed, we aren't at that $400,000 goal, but we were hoping to increase that to $425,000 beginning in 2029 and onward. Again, this would currently in our CIP be funded by debt. Now, according to the DOT's website, the estimated annual eligible vehicle registrations are 16,469 vehicles. As I said before, not every vehicle is eligible for this fee. At a $20 fee, we just don't earn enough revenue to fulfill what we have planned in CIP. The magic number is $411,000, and I've shown what a $24 and $26 fee would net us, and it just isn't enough to cover the anticipated need. But $25 per vehicle does that. If we were to stack this revenue up against our CIP budget, with the red being the expenditure, the green being the revenue, right now you'll see some variation between expenses and revenues and how they shift over this 5-year time frame. If this were to pass in this 5-year cycle, we would have approximately $31,000 more revenue than expenditures that could help with unknown inflation, weather conditions, anything that may come up within this time period. If the fee were to be implemented, the steps that would need to occur after would be to establish accounting procedures. It is a best practice to create a special revenue fund specifically for this purpose of recording the registration fees and the expenditures related to the seal coat and crack filling program. We can assign project numbers to each area that is remediated if necessary for increased transparency. We would need to provide some initial startup funding. Our program generally starts in April or May, and if we were to begin collecting revenues in February, we run the risk of going into a deficit. So I would propose that we would reduce the planned 2027 debt from $375,000 to $200,000 This also would provide a little bit of flexibility in terms of timing. If we get a longer season where we're able to do more repairs or inflation or whatever unforeseen activity may come up, in addition to providing that cash to get started. Along with that, we would remove $1,650,000 from our borrowing for the seal coat and crack filling program in years 2028 to 2031 and beyond. We would also anticipate an annual evaluation of the fee presented jointly by myself and the Director of Public Works. Some ways that the fee will benefit our transportation funding is, first and foremost, it will protect our capital investment by maximizing its lifespan. Secondly, cost containment with the fee will prevent ongoing property tax increase in the debt levy. Currently, the debt and related interest is included in that levy, and we can run that out and not incur that for future years. This is a stable and predictable revenue stream. It will facilitate decision-making for sustainable transportation services. It also is going to provide alignment between beneficiaries and financial contributors. We do have people who don't drive, who are paying for the program, and vice versa. This is one of the few legal options for creating a diversified revenue stream to address this specific problem. It will reverse our long-term practice of reverse the practice of long-term payments for a short-time benefit. As Director Moritz stated, we're looking at 7 years cycle for the program. We're paying 20 years in some cases on this debt. This will positively impact our legal debt capacity. For a reminder, the city is limited to 5% of its equalized value for its general obligation debt. The city has a further policy where we try to limit ourselves to 65% of that number. Removing this bit from our debt will allow for capacity for future expansions of projects. And lastly, this does support the strategic plan where transportation, roads, et cetera, were deemed a high priority for the city. With that, I will do a quick overview of ordinance number 1547. Essentially, the ordinance does define the purpose, which would be for transportation. It defines that we will only collect the fee as allowed in the statute, and that the vehicles must be registered to owners within the city, and that the fee itself is collected by the Wisconsin Department of Transportation and remitted to us to be accounted for in a segregated fund. So with that, both Director Moritz and I will answer any questions that you have.
Any questions? Fran.
Thank you again so much, Jennifer and Josh, for working on this. I want to make a few comments here. So just wanted to thank everyone that I've heard from, pro and con. This registration fee, about this registration fee, AKA the wheel tax. And I just wanted to make a few things clear. When I suggested that we consider this, I did not make up, unlike what other people have said, I've heard, is didn't make up my mind. I didn't decide I wanted it immediately. I was undecided, and I still remain undecided. However, I do like the fact that this will prevent increases in property taxes. And I'll get into that in a moment because I think that is a good thing and stable. It will create stable revenue for the purpose of, you would call it a road user fee per vehicle. What I found really interesting is, I'm going to go back a couple years too, but is there are folks that are vehemently opposed to this $25 registration fee, yet some of those same folks were complicit, silent, when it came to what, $71 million in a school district tax. Now, we don't control that here at the city, but I just wanted to let you know, it was less than 2 years ago, the city squeaked by a referendum allowing that type of expenditure. And what it did was 52.9% increase in the taxes. Now, what happened was a couple of our Marshfield residents lost their house, and some came close to losing their house. Because we're dealing with a lot of people that are lower income or elderly. Sometimes we don't think about them. And when that kind of tax increase was proposed, it was devastating. And so we really need to control or reduce property taxes in the city. We pay one of the highest in the country. And I'm going to just make sure everyone is reassured, whether it's my constituents or the entire city of Marshfield, I wish to lower taxes, especially property taxes, okay? So I'm going to make that clear. This is a registration fee that we're proposing. I'm going to consider it. But please, let's keep our priorities, and let's keep a level head about this where we're doing this. I just wanted to, I'm not on social media, so I don't get into, won't find me complaining. I would like to offer constructive solutions and real solutions about lowering taxes, okay? So people that know me well, know me personally, I'm not a person that, makes platitudes or promises. I want to deliver results. So I just want to make that, and my apologies to Jennifer and Josh for the long speech, but I just want to thank you for your hard work on this, and I definitely am going to consider this. Thank you.
Ms. Dallas.
Just a real quick question. Let's just say Wood County decides to implement a wheel tax. It is on. Turn your hearing aid up. If Wood County decides to implement a wheel tax, what does that do to this?
It stacks on top of the municipal tax. To date, I think there are 13 or 14 counties who do that. One of those is Marathon. In my research, I've discovered that both Dane County and Milwaukee County impose county taxes as well as city, so they're stacked. So, that makes it seem like half the population of Wisconsin pays at least one tax and possibly two. But it will absolutely stack. Wood County will use its portion of the vehicle registration for county roads. It does not inherently share that with the municipality.
Thanks.
White. Thank you, Mayor. Jennifer, have you done any projections on how much interest would be saved by not borrowing that money over the next 5 years?
We just looked at the past. I did ask our financial advisor. They're a little bit reluctant to take a stab at interest costs. It's volatile over the next 5 years, but what we can provide is that we are incurring approximately $586,000 on what we've already borrowed.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Rigo.
Thank you. This one's for Director Moritz. What's the condition of our roads right now?
A little bit of everything. I think there was one slide, if I can go back up to it.
You could just be a good, bad, poor, amazing, just some descriptor.
There's some of each of those. I'm gonna go back to this graph because it kind of explains the mix of where our roads. So we have, I mean, this says 40% of them are in that 5 to 6 range, which is, I mean, that's sustainable. Brand new road is a 10, a awful road like Fifth Street over here is, I'm sure that's rated a 1. So this is kind of the distribution of where we're at. We'd love to be in that 5 to 6 range for all our roads. I did a little analysis if we would spend, based on what our CIP amount is, with the money spread out over the asphalt paving program and the crack filling and seal coat program, if that was assigned properly to our roadway network, we could move to about 60% in that 5 to 6 range. So I guess that didn't directly answer your question, but
close enough.
A wide variety of.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I have one question. There's no limit as to we must use this year's money this year. We can roll it over. Is that true?
We can roll it over. There are no restrictions other than to use it for transportation related purposes. Given our 5-year CIP, we've tried to match the proposed fee so that, we're really close to what we expect to be spending in the next 5 years.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you. No action on this until a future meeting. Item P is a request for detachment of land from the city of Marshfield near the northwest corner of West McMillan Street and St. Joseph's Avenue, presented by Steve Bargs, City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I think most everyone on the council is back here for the same conversation as 2 weeks ago. So I'm not going to go through my original email in depth. I'm just going to highlight it briefly so that everybody understands, including those people in the audience, maybe people watching at home, the gist of this particular request. And I'll dive into just simply answering some of the questions that were raised at the last meeting. So again, the request here is for detachment from the city of Marshfield, the property at the northwest corner, effectively of West McMillan Street and St. Joseph's Avenue. It has to do with a proposal from Jeff Hill for a project called Back 9 Estates, residential subdivision at that location. Right now, it appears that not only does he not have access onto St. Joseph Avenue, as I think we discussed before, from the town of McMillan, but also he doesn't have access that he would need anyway from the West McMillan Street right away to enter that development. So he's kind of in a quandary, and he's suggesting that he would like to go back to the town of McMillan with his property. I think I touched briefly the last time on the detachment process without getting into it a lot again. 2 basic ways. One is through approval of a supermajority of both the council and the town board of the town of McMillan. Another is possible through a referendum, and I can touch on that more as need be in this conversation. And then I think at the first meeting I walked through kind of a review of the site. It's zoned SR2, single family residential, and the long-term land use plan, the future land use from our comprehensive plan, suggested it's new neighborhood mixed use, which would allow this type of project as well. A residential development of this type would be acceptable. So anyway, with that in mind, I'm just going to go right to the things that I was requested to bring as new information. One of them was the assessed value of the property in question. It's currently assessed at $57,000, and that's for 21.5 acres of land. Comes out to about $2,600 per acre. I've had comments from a couple of people on the council who've heard this, wondering about why so low. Even though it's zoned single-family residential, it's assessed as ag. That's a classification it has for assessing purposes as agricultural. And that's why they're roughly $2,600 per acre rather than some higher number. Currently, that produces a little bit just under $500 of tax revenue per year to the city. The overall tax bill would probably be closer to, somewhere around $1,500 or something. The city is a third, probably more than a third actually of the total tax bill, but roughly $500 comes to the city of Marshfield from that property. A question was also raised about, when the city annexed the property years ago, we had to pay to the town an amount equal to 5 years of the taxes that they would be losing. And we can do that in one payment or over a period of years. That we probably did it one payment. That's our normal thing that we do. And so we made that payment, and that's a long time ago. The question came up, if the property went back to the town of McMillan, would the town have to pay the city some sort of fee, 5 years of tax payments or something, in respect of the fact that we'd be losing that on our tax rolls? The answer is no. If you look at state law, the difference between annexation process and detachment process is stark. They're not, the detachment process, as I said last time out, is not just the opposite of annexation. It's a very different process. Along with that, there's no reference at all in Wisconsin statutes to having to make a payment for a town to pay money to the city for that transition. Another thing that came up, or has been come up, a couple of these have come up privately with certain members of the council as opposed to at the meeting, but the access to St. Joe is just a reminder. It came from several meetings of the town board, including one on June 8th that Mr. Hill and Josh Moritz, our public works director, were at, where the city had presented actually 3 ideas as to how we might be able to resolve the issue and allow Mr. Hill to have the access he needs coming out of St. Joe's. The town simply flat out rejected that idea and voted to not allow the access at all. And I did put that in the memo that I gave to you, what those ideas were that were raised as possibilities, including, snow plowing or maintenance of that portion of the roadway, some other things, but they did not resonate with the town of McMillan's board. A couple other things that came up along the way. I think there's mentioned even at the last meeting about fire coverage, and I see Fire Chief Mueller here. A question was how this would play out if it went back to the town as far as us covering it. Would we be expected to do more? Or what would happen? And the reality is it would just be treated, as I understand, as any other property that is not in the city limits. We have mutual aid agreements with the various towns around us. So if there was a need, the town of McMillan would be contacting the town of Spencer, the town of any number of towns in the city of Marshfield, presumably, and those agreements would cover what would happen. And would we respond? Potentially, certainly. But there's really nothing else that we would say right now or do right now that would I think, be inserting much into this dynamic or this discussion of the detachment request. And then finally, I think the last thing was somebody brought up to me on the side, how much has the city already invested into this project in terms of cost? The answer from a hard cost standpoint, as best we can tell, talking at staff level, is probably some time of the city attorney to meet with us and to review some of the documents along the way. Otherwise, it's purely a staff cost. Has a staff spent a lot of hours on this? Yes, we have. We've tried hard to work with Mr. Hill, and we've reviewed some of the documents sent by his design and engineering people, redraws, if you will, of the plat and that type of thing. I have no way to calculate this. We don't actually keep track of this accounting-wise. We don't. The engineering folks, for example, don't document. I worked 3/4 of an hour today on reviewing the back 9 estates plat. So we don't have that, but we have tried to work as best we can to help support the opportunity to see the subdivision come to pass. I just don't have any quote of dollars for you. So those are some of the questions that have come up since the last meeting. I would take questions on those items or anything else from the original presentation about the process or about the site or anything along the lines of how we got here. Otherwise, I would turn it back to the mayor to lead the discussion.
Okay, we have no recommended action on this.
It's just, yeah, it's a discretion of the council. And again, this is really for the developer to see what the likelihood is of this going forward. Ultimately, the developer would have to present a formal petition, but it seemed the best way to find out if the council was interested in this, but by going the route we've gone with these discussions as to whether or not there's an interest in allowing this property to go back to the town of McMillan. And my goal for tonight would be that we get a consensus somehow or another through a vote or other action that would suggest whether or not the developer should go forward with this request.
So is there any discussion? Any questions, Steve? Is there anyone who wants to make a motion? Or a proposal of any sort? I guess we'll move on to the next item then. Item Q is a request to approve resolution number 2026-21, approving a CSM to allow construction of a restaurant across land located northwest of North Central Avenue and southeast of Peach Avenue, which is parcel number 250-2603-33-0962. Presented by James Levin.
Thank you, Mayor. So on December 16th, 2025, the Plan Commission held a public hearing on a conditional use request from Panda Express to allow a reduced drive-through stacking distance under Section 18 at 106 North Peach Avenue. The Plan Commission recommended approval and condition on the submission and city approval of a certified survey map establishing the development parcel prior to the issuance of any zoning or building permitting. So it's obviously been a few months since the December Plan Commission. Since that time, the CSM was submitted for recording with Marathon County in July of 2026, splitting the property into 2 lots, one for the Panda Express development and one reserved for future development. The parcel is now established and described in the attached resolution. So at this time, I'm simply asking to approve the Common Council, recommend that the Common Council approve and adopt the resolution number 2026-21, approving the conditional use permit consistent with the Plan Commission's December 16th recommendation.
Okay, Mr. Giles, your motion.
Motion to approve resolution number 2026-21.
Okay, and Mr. White, you second that?
I concur.
Okay, is there any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. And that motion passes. Item R is a staff report in response to council's request for 3 options for the 2027 communications budget presented by Tom Laux, Communications Director. Tom.
Good evening. I'm just going to put up a presentation here. I got to get rid of this one. Oop. Got this one up here. Get that one out of the way. Wait, I don't want to end the meeting. I got to be careful of that. A lot of buttons up here. I need to get, escape. There we go. Oh. Still not there. I just want my desktop. That's all I want. You can get our desktop where I need. I believe. Yep. Please slide. There we go. Thank you, Mayor and alderpersons. Tonight, I am presenting a budget service level discussion on the Communications Department. This was a request coming in by council as well. So hopefully this will give a better understanding, and then I'll open up to questions after my presentation. All right, what are we deciding tonight? And that is you guys. Right now, the 2027 budget question is a level of service the city wants to provide to the Communications Department. And number 1 is you're gonna determine service level, which is maintain the full current model, preserve only city core services, or move to a substantially reduced 1-person model. Number 2, recurring funding, determine how much recurring support should come from outside the fund 235 for core city communications and government meeting services. And number 3, community media staffing, decide whether community media, which is Marshfield Broadcasting, continues as a city service, and whether a 2-person staff is going to be maintained. I broke down the 3 service areas to help understand. There are 3 of them. There is core city communications, government meeting services, which we're doing tonight, and community media. Quickly, I'll go down the core media or core city communications, which is official city communications, which is the city website, content governance, your mobile app, alerts, urgent information, city news, media relations newsletter, social media, managing of all the social media channels, department and project public information support, example, like a referendum that we did with the fire department, election information from the clerk, and ADA accessibility, which is going to be a huge one come 2028. It's a new law that's going to be enacted on all our visual aids, including the city website, agendas, a lot of work there. Then government meeting services or production, like this one right now, gavel to gavel, where people can watch live or recorded meetings, and then meeting technology and troubleshooting for the meeting itself to be online and available streaming. And down the road, we also have to do closed captioning, which is accessibility and technical support with that. We don't have to do that right now because ADA rule is 2028 that was moved ahead or moved back or moved ahead 1 year. It was originally 2027. New law came out to push it to 2028 because we're a smaller community. Community media, one of the service areas is Marshfield Broadcasting Platforms and Distribution. That is your government access channel, Marshfield Now and Producers channel. And remember, those are streaming as well, not just cable. Council preview and post-council, acquired local programming, school board, churches, candidate nonprofits and local events, producer studio, equipment access, and community announcements. Again, these are high level, not everything. So let's get to some numbers here. Why the current funding model no longer works as it did when we started this process. Well, we all know franchise fees and cable is declining. So what I figured out is you can see short before paying any operating expense is $41,670. And this is a proposed budget right now for 2027. Again, city administrator is still reviewing that as well. But right now we'd be short just without paying any operating expenses, which means personal benefits, you can see that here, $232,170. That's both David and myself, including all benefits. And you can see the reoccurring fund. We do have to estimate charter fees as well as our other fees that come in from TDS, which is quite a bit lower amount, about $190,500, which would be a plan of what we hope to get, and that's also with state aid of $49,500 that would be coming in, and hopefully that would stay. Again, that's not always a guarantee. So you can see that right now we will be $87,603 short, and we have to somehow figure that gap. Full service on the budget would be $278,103. I'll just keep going on. 3 funding choices are really here. That's really what I wanted to provide. Full funding, nothing changes. $87,603 would have to be found outside the outside the 235 fund. I'm not saying general fund, but it has to be found somewhere. Partial funding, which includes those core city communications and government meeting services that I talked about. And partial funding with that, with 2 employees, is $69,800. We are short, so you need that outside the fund, the 235 fund. That would end community media Marshfield Broadcasting, but redirect 2 positions towards city government work, which is core city communications and meeting. No additional funding happens outside the 235. You'd have to reduce to a 1-person city communications and meeting model. Community media and second position, additional core services would have to end. So option 1, again, full funding, you need to come up with about $87,603. Again, this is approximate because we don't have a finalized budget. Steve and myself still need to meet and review anything that we can take away or if we need to add at this point. But it's very close to an approximate level, which was given when my budget and everybody's budget was due to finance at the end of July. So again, it funds full core communications, full production technical support for actual city meetings. It funds community media, which is Marshfield Broadcasting and all its platforms, the government access channel, Marshfield Now and Producers channel, all the local churches, which we have a dozen of those that send in. We don't tape them, they bring to us. School board, that is being done right now by by a community producer is wanting to do that, so we provide that. And candidate forums that you see and that each of you have been on at times. And a technical and a two-person staff. So full funding keeps everything going, but again, we got to find the funding. Partial funding, again, would be 2 communication employees focused on city government work. We would focus our work on website, alerts, app, city news, public information, emergency support, official election information provided by the clerk. That would not be shows, that's not official election information. We wouldn't be able to do that anymore. It can only be done under Marshfield Broadcasting. Newsletter, social media, would continue doing department and major communications support, production and technical support for city meetings, as you see here. That's what would continue. But what would end is the community TV, and that's really a lot of the heart of the operation. This community TV is, the broadcaster does so many things. It provides the YouTube feed. It provides really the entire video process. And without that, it's changing a lot of ways to get a meeting across. It would take some time to really figure out. So you would lose government access channel, cable rebroadcast of any city meetings, anything that's brought in, church, school board meetings. Council preview, post-council probably would have to go away because those are, again, another Marshfield Broadcasting produced program. Candidate program profiles, which are very popular. People do it all the time. We're doing them right now. Church program on-demand streaming, that's another use. We'd lose all that. All the Marshfield Now Producers Channel local events that we cover would all go away with the partial funding. Even though we still have 2 people, we're refocusing and we're cutting some area in there. That's why it's 69,000. It's not a lot. It's that because some of these resources are shared between communications and community media. That's the really neat piece of bringing this all together in 2019 about what you save, not just employees, but within equipment and what we do. So makes a big difference. And then we lose some of the studio equipment as well that's used for Marshfield Broadcasting. Option 3, that is the 1-person capacity. I put, well, a 40-hour week is 2,080 hours. Right now, we estimate, this is an estimate on city meetings and this is on 1 person and then general, and then all the city core information. So meetings can average up to 300 to 400 hours a year. It can be more. It depends on how long we're here. You kind of have to guess on that. But that's just being in this taping amount of time. That doesn't have to do with closed captioning, on demand, all the work to get it up there. So there's extra work there. Unfortunately, we'd have to reduce. We couldn't even get close to doing what we do with 1 person, even on the city end of things. So city meetings would be reduced. Weekly newsletter frequency, I can't guarantee them every week. Website development, cleanup, routine updates, along with less support for ADA, which is going to be a requirement. It's a big deal. It's going to affect all of us. Every person on the city staff is going to have a part of it. So it's been hard for a lot of communities, and lucky we have an extra year to do this, and there will be extra cost in it as both myself and IT are working on. Social media, department campaigns and all that would be reduced. Economic development, recruitment videos, photo would be limited, and then our internal communications, we just wouldn't have a backup. So if someone's gone, that's going to be tough. We can't make it. So then no meeting would covered. Things just don't get done as we want. So that is the thing. I just wanted to put a little bit about a reach, because you might ask, well, what is this? Is this stuff do any good? Is it worth it? This is just since February 20th to August 20th here. 3.6 million Facebook views. This is the city's main Facebook channel. That has nothing to do with the other Facebook channels like Parks and Rec or even Marshfield Broadcasting or police or fire. This is just the city views that we get on that since February 20th to August 20th. Marshfield Now views, those are views that are put on all of our different platforms through our called TelView. That's our cable and our streaming. We've had 913,000 views. of programming. YouTube, we provide that for the city meetings only here. You get 128,000 views on YouTube because we promote the other a lot. New digital users since this time period is 11,348 users. We have really, in the past year, have really increased a lot of our reach. David's done a great job in the community media area. I've been able to do a lot with the city newsletter and online, and we're working on a brand new website, which we hope in another month that we can bring it to you here. That'll be pretty neat. Just a little bit left here, and then I'll turn it over to you guys. Again, recommendation is for the council is fund core, I say my support is to fund core governmental services and keep community media. Preserve the full funding. If you can preserve the full funding, it would cost $87,000 and some change. If not, you're going to make some reductions. I don't want to go over that again. I did that before. We do have a reserve. I want people to understand we do have yet a reserve. This is an estimate. We have about $26,100 left in the reserve. Right now there's more, but this is including lower franchise fees that we had to anticipate in 2025. We anticipated a little higher, or I always shouldn't say a little higher, but they were lower than expected. So we're losing some money there. That's why that projection's lower. And then any of the expenditures that need to still be done this year would approximately be $26,100, give or take. Maybe we can save $4,000 or $5,000, but that's about where we're at on that. So there's not much left in there, and unfortunately, we can't save it. And that is the last of my slides. Really, it's looking for a direction for you guys, so the city administrator we can put a final budget when we bring it to you in October, and what we can bring, so we're not bringing a negative balance budget to you guys. So we want to bring it to you ahead of time to see what kind of services you think you would like to see from the communications department.
Okay, this is at the discretion of the council, and I see we have a motion from Mr. Varsh.
My motion is to move forward with number one, full funding for the 2027 budget year.
Mr. Giles, you second that?
I do.
Okay. Discussion. Mr. White.
Mr. Reigel's amend button is on.
Oh,
That was an accident.
okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Tom, this was an excellent presentation. I can tell you put a lot of time into this. Very informational. I've learned a lot about city communications here over the last few weeks. But I also know prior to my time on the council how important the communication department is. Not only the government part of it, but also the community media part of it as well. It's informational. It keeps the public informed, and that's good for all of us as a city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Spiro.
Thank you. Tom, the only thing I was a little bit wondering about, and maybe this just wasn't part of this presentation, but in your budget, do you carry anything in your budget for equipment replacement? I haven't seen that mentioned in a long time, and I know we have some old equipment. So where does that come up? Because this seemed awful tight, and it didn't have anything about that.
Yeah, unfortunately, we'd never had that kind of fund for replacement. What has happened in the past is we've always used to have a fund balance a little bit more because franchise fees were doing well and we didn't use it all, and we had a cushion. Well, we ended up using about $65,000 to remodel the basement downstairs, so we lost that cushion. So we do not have a fund for any of that, and it's going to be vital and I think you may have it in your packet. I put information about sustainability and what we need to do, because we definitely need to do that. 2030, we could have an expenditure if we go with keeping community media, because the support will end and we have to replace the unit after 10 years. especially because of security. We wouldn't be able to keep it. And then our TriCaster, which we purchased before my time in 2018, loses in 2032, although that's a pretty long time on a piece of equipment. But yeah, we have to, and those are big things. And then ADA is another one with closed captioning. So yeah, we really do need that. But in the past, we were able to use our fund balance and then do a budget resolution here that way. That's how we did it. Probably not the way to do it, but it's all we had.
So with that in mind, what, in the next couple of years, what would you do if there was something major, equipment-wise, that we would need to purchase? Because this budget, even providing the $87,603 shortfall, doesn't allow for any equipment replacement, it doesn't look. So what's the plan, or what does Jennifer have planned?
We don't, right now is, I put some ideas and I have it on paper, but right now we have to look for funding of some sort to replace that. We don't have it. And some of that funding will have to be general fund because a lot of the equipment that was put in here before was using franchise fee, microphones, audio, all that, all these cameras were actually franchise fees. So regardless, it's probably gonna have to be a general fund expenditure, but we don't wanna do that with capital either. So that is a discussion we need to really seriously think about of how we're gonna fund that. Right now, I want to thank David back there because he is the master of putting things together and making things work. And he has saved us a lot of money by doing what he's done to make it work. And I appreciate that. So he keeps putting things together. We had a piece of equipment today that's been since 2010. And we did a program with John today with it. So worked out well.
Okay, so, I mean, I'm going to agree with this, but I feel like this is just sort of a Band-Aid. Like, I feel like there's a lot more coming down the road. So I feel like this discussion has to be way bigger than what it has been today.
Mr. Barr.
Thank you. Yeah, when he mentions the 235 fund, we've used that fund in the past historically for the kind of purchases that you're referring to of major equipment and whatnot. And now the fund balance is down to $26,000 as a result of some of the things that Tom mentioned, including the renovation of the basement of this building for his studio. But I think if we look at it, we're going to have to look more at possibly CIP. And again, the threshold for CIP is an item that has at least a $10,000 value and a life expectancy of more than 5 years. Some of his items are going to fit that category. The TriCaster would be one of them. So they'll be eligible for borrowing under the city's annual borrowing, and that'll have to be used. So that doesn't take care of all that you're saying, but it would definitely help offset the bigger costs that he's expecting to incur in equipment replacement in the next 5 to 10 years.
Ms. Dulles, you're up.
What are you doing to generate your own income? Are we not charging for the Marshfield Broadcasting Services to help raise or lower those fees?
Yeah, so what we're doing with that right now on any programs, we have a sponsorship level of $50 per program. It's not going to cover the expenses, but that was a start where we're at. But again, it's not mandatory on those programming. Like some of like our Health Matters, right now we don't get any money for that to do that. So it has been discussed by this group, but we did put trying to build some extra money in that area. It's not a lot. And then do some productions on the outside that has nothing to do with Marshfield Broadcasting or the city, although hard to find the time. You don't want to be doing it at 9 o'clock at night. I find myself doing those. It's just not sustainable. We just don't have the time to go out and be doing major projects. I did one for Mid-State, made a couple, 700 and something bucks, but those take a lot of time. They're a whole different kind of work. They're a production service to do that. It's not really in our what we should probably be doing. We don't want to be doing things like shoveling people's driveways and charging. So it's just we don't have the time to do that. But we are trying to make some money there. We have put $5,000 in the budget to get there. Otherwise, we do not charge. We have talked about it, but one of the reasons you got to be careful of charging is The city cable providers that buy cable actually do get charged. And they get charged $3 to $4 a month because we charge a franchise fee for that. And that's a fee that was enacted years ago by the city here. That's called that's the franchise fee. So any people that buy cable, you'll see it's the city of Marshfield. So we look at it as a service to the people that pay for the cable and not want to really want to double charge, but it's always open. We're always open to great ideas like that. So I'm glad to bring it up to our communications committee as well again.
Mr. Rigel, you're next.
Thank you. I'll keep this brief. I'm just going to echo what Ms. Bureau said. It seems to me like this is just in its infancy here. We need to flesh out a lot more if this is going to be something that we're going to actually entertain for years to come, as opposed to just a one-off. So, I'll go forward with this, but I think we need to take a long, hard look at this as how this is going to go forward, if it's going to be maintained for any period of time. Thank you.
Can I just say one thing? One thing that I want to make, work with all of you, and as well as our communications committee and our city administrator, is that plan on what we can do for making possible changes in the core city communications, so it stays sustainable and then that the community media can function well for many years to come. And that'll give us time to come up with a lot of these ideas that we're talking about. Next year would be vital to really come up with where we're going to go in the community media, because we all know that franchise fees are going to continue dwindling, and that's what we're going to need to really fund that community media. And I think it'll be important that we look at maybe charging or doing something. It's definitely something that we have to talk about. And then we got to talk about the core communications and where we can look at, if we're looking, I came up with I think a really good idea is building it in your project schedules. Communications is vital. When you do a major road project, what is the communications plan of that project? There's always a plan in it. And I'm really key on bringing a plan forward and working with staff. And that might be a revenue source for the department. It's just how we creatively think about it. I've been working with a lot of other cities to see how they handle it. Everyone has a mix. I forward those to Steve. We'll be talking about it and presenting that to you down the road.
Mr. White.
Yeah, I mean, to echo, I think what Rebecca was talking about, maybe some of what Andy said too. I mean, now is the time to start considering, what your life cycle, I don't expect you to answer this, but what your life cycle program is for your hardware, because it's not sustainable without hardware, right? So, and you don't want to do it all in 1 year, right? So it's time to start thinking about that. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, before there's a vote, I just wanted to chime in a little bit. First of all, I greatly respect what Tom and David do. They've done a wonderful job with the communications department. I commend you greatly for the coverage of the community and the civic activities, including obviously the government per se. If this vote is approved, what you're directing me to do is to work with Tom to include the full range of service provided today into the 2027 budget proposal, which I'll do. And you recognize when you say that the lion's share of that gap he's talking about will be general fund. And that'll make it a little bit more challenging. But I think what we really wanted tonight was for you to weigh in terms of that level of service that you want to see coming out of the communications department for your community. And I think that's the takeaway that I'll have from this, if in fact this motion passes. So thank you.
Steve stated what the motion is. Move forward with option 1, I guess we'll call it. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. And that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Item S is a discussion regarding approval of budget resolution number 17-2026 at the August 11th, 2026 council meeting, refunding parkland dedication fees. This item was requested by council members Coran and White. That is being presented by Mr. Bard, City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, you do remember 2 weeks ago, we had a discussion here about the parkland dedication fees and the question about having to refund dollars, which nobody likes to have to turn back monies that have been collected for potential park uses. So actually, a lot of questions were raised then. I've gotten several others from you, apart from that meeting, email and phone calls, that type of thing, that you'd like addressed. And certainly council members, Coran and White, shared those and thought it'd be good to bring it to this meeting. In meeting with the city attorney and the finance director this afternoon at some length, we talked about all the different issues involved in this. And what really came out of that was the fact that it's largely a legal issue more than anything. So I'd like to turn it over at this time to the city attorney and let him kind of give some oversight in terms of the legal issues and how that plays into this conversation and where it takes us going forward.
When this had first come up last time, I was kind of trying to dodge this because there is a legal concern in terms of how the original ordinance was drafted. Our ordinance is a little bit inconsistent with respect to the language that's in the statute that basically authorizes the collection of parkland dedication fees. And, there might be some workaround in regard to that, but the bigger problem and some of the discussion that came up last time was sort of what is the use of those particular funds? And one of the issues is that there has to actually be a needs assessment. The needs assessment has to come when we do the ordinance. There was an attempt to do that when this ordinance was originally passed. There was sort of like a legislative bulletin that described the existence of an act that allowed these fees to be collected, but not a good description of what needed to be done to back that up. There was sort of a park planning and management document that was put in place, but I'm not convinced that that would be sufficient. But that's not really where the problem is. We discussed this last time, sort of, what could you use this for? And I'll go back. Before the last time that you folks met, Jennifer had sent out some legal questions to me. We actually ended up getting together and looking at that. And at that point, I looked at it and felt that there really isn't a project that we set this up properly to be able to be used for. That's not because I think there was an error. I just think that there wasn't a qualifying project. You have to go back to that language. The language that authorizes this requires that there be the funds that are collected be for the acquisition or initial improvement of land. So you're getting land or you're doing something to create something on land that already exists, but it has to be that initial improvement. So the distinction being that you can't go and create improvements or maintenance or anything that would be related to an existing park. That's a problem, and that's the reason why there really wasn't something that could be identified to try to apply those funds to. Then a more complicated issue is that how these funds are used. This is kind of like the combination of two different statutes. It's 23645 that allows the collection of parkland dedication fees as opposed to actual land when development is going. And then it's 66.0617 that actually talks about impact fee. And these two things work together. And here's where that 66.017 creates a little bit of a problem for us. What it says is that in order to apply these, when you take that fee, you have to do an assessment of the impact of the project and correlate the fee that's being charged to the impact on parks for the city. Now, when you think about it, there's going to be, just because somebody's doing a development, there isn't going to be an automatic impact on the park or park systems. In its simplest form, if you understand why they created this, imagine downtown Milwaukee and you put up a 150 apartment complex, and you're doing that in a location where there's not much around it. And the idea was that if you're going to do that and you're going to improve 100 acres, you need to carve out some acreage for park because there's no way for the city to accommodate the impact, the need for that sort of amenity when you're going to make that kind of improvement. And then when they passed this act years back when our ordinance was passed, the idea was, well, there's sometimes when we don't have the land to be able to do that, so we're going to allow you to pay a fee so that you can improve some other piece of land that will at least relate to the project. And it's that relationship of the project to the impact on the parks that becomes a problem. And there has to be an allocation of that. In other words, you look at this and say, we're going to put up, I'm going to use it again, apartment complex because it's easy. If you can imagine other projects where you could have, and I use this as an example this afternoon, you had an underground parking garage, maybe there's no impact at all on the park system and the need to be able to, create something for this. And again, unfortunately, as I looked at this, I told Steve, boy, you almost need to have a consultant that makes that evaluation so you can protect yourself, or else well-trained staff to try to make this calculation. So I'm going to give you guys a recommendation how to move forward in regard to this, but that's a complexity, because it occurred to me when we were talking about that if you have to hire a consultant to come in and do this, and you're talking about the kind of fees here, you could create an imbalance immediately by having to pay out a big fee for something you're not going to recover the appropriate fees for dedication to offset what you paid to have somebody tell you can even take that fee. That's a complex issue, and not one that you can easily make a determination. But getting back to that apartment complex scenario, that's the idea. There's two phases. One, you need to sort of have a map for what are the park needs and what is a potential development to the city moving forward. What is our future need for new park? Then, and that should be done when you have the ordinance. There was an attempt to do it. I'm not sure it was good enough, but that isn't really the problem in regard to paying back this fee, because I don't think you guys have really much choice. You need to pay back this fee. We weren't set up to do this. But then the other component of it is, when you're going to charge that fee, there has to be a determination made of what's the impact of this project on our park system, or what percentage should be recovered for the impact on the park system, and that's where that fee gets set. And that does require a little bit of expertise in doing it. Maybe we've got staff that can do that. I think that needs to be looked at. So to kind of cut to the chase, I mean, my recommendation would be we need to revise this ordinance. It needs to be done with a needs assessment at that point in time. And I think you should direct staff to get together, redraft an ordinance, and come up with a plan for a needs assessment to go along with the ordinance. And then also, and here's a critical piece to that staff look at the options to be able to cover the future application of the parkland dedication fee ordinance, so that we have a way to economically do that. Some way of looking at, can we do this internally, or do we need to have a consultant do it, but do it in such a way that we're not taking fees and then paying more out to somebody else to make the allocation of what that should be. There should be a way to do that. I think that can be done in consultation with some of the staff contemporaries and other municipalities that maybe deal with this a little bit more. But the bottom line is, I think we've always treated that here as though, oh, you're going to do an improvement, you're going to do a project, we're going to take this fee, and we get to just apply it. That is not how this works. There's going to be circumstances where there is going to be a project that you're not going to be able to require a fee, because it probably doesn't have a direct relationship to the parks and the park system and an impact on it enough to justify taking the fee. And even if it did, there's going to be times when you look at that and the economics of it just don't work out for you. So anyway, that's my recommendation. And if there are questions, that's fine. But these two, the reason that I was trying to avoid this last time was because I wasn't sure how many fees had been collected and where they were at, because I didn't want to come out and say, hey, we got a problem in our code and we might not be in a position to have collected any of this. I didn't know if that was going to trigger that we had to pay a bunch back.
Have anything more, Steve?
No, I think that's, he have met with Jennifer and me this afternoon, and I think what he did a great job just now of covering is really what came out of that conversation. That this is largely, if not entirely, a legal issue based upon Wisconsin statutes and some conflict with our current code and the way we've looked at this in the past and what we need to do going forward. In fact, we want to collect parkland dedication fees in the future.
Okay, is there any, Ms. Spiros, you?
So have we ever been able to use these fees on anything in our history?
My understanding from what the city attorney just said is probably not, because of the foundation that hasn't been laid, correct?
So first of all, I think there's been some fees that have been collected. I don't know if they've had, oh, no, Jennifer's shaking her head no. So the answer is no, because there has to be that assessment that's made that determines that, number one, there's a need for parks because of the project. And number two, that particular project is having an impact that we can collect a fee and that there is a rational relationship between what the fee we're charging and the impact of that project on our park system.
Okay. I mean, I looked into this a little bit myself, and I feel like you're wrong. I feel like the trails that were built and the trail connectors could have qualified. I don't know if the pickleball courts would have, because we actually pulled up tennis courts and basically that would have been considered fixing something and not introducing something new, even though pickleball and tennis weren't the same thing. But I do think that the new trail connections and things like that could have qualified had we done it differently or properly.
And that's the key here. Remember, there's two components. It's not just, would you have a project that is an improvement, like a new park, a new trail that might qualify, but when you take that fee, you have to make the determination that the project for which someone is doing and has to pay, so somebody that's a developer is going to, you know, again, create an apartment somewhere on the outside of town or on the edge of town or wherever it is. You have to have somebody that makes an evaluation that says that particular project is going to impact the park systems and it's going to have this percentage of impact so that we can charge a particular fee. And I don't think we were in a position to do that. The original ordinance did not address that closely enough. And then even when you do, we have to have an infrastructure in place to be able to do that, either on staff or a way to hire a consultant to be able to do those things.
Right, I get what you're saying. But my point is had we had those things in place, the fees could have been used.
Potentially.
Right. Most likely.
Mr. White.
Do we need a motion to direct staff to basically fix the ordinance?
Yeah, I think that would be in order. If you think about how the city attorney said it. Oh, I'm sorry.
Information.
Oh, I apologize.
But we can direct the staff to work on an ordinance.
Yeah.
And bring it back for a future agenda.
Yeah. I forgot what the recommended action was. Yep. I apologize. All right. Yeah, that would.
Which is?
Information only, so I think maybe we get to the end of this agenda, you can just ask under items for future agendas.
And I think at the last meeting, we already approved repaying the fees, so we don't need to do anything with that. So unless there's something else, we can move on to the next agenda item. Okay. Item T is election of an alderperson White to the Marshfield Utilities Commission to fill an unexpired term ending in 2029, presented by me. Natasha was on the Utility Commission as a member of the City Council with her term ending in 2029, and this would just be moving Mr. White into that position. We do need to have an election for that, so I will look for nominations, correct? Yes?
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Dellis.
My motion is to nominate and elect John White Jr. to the Utility Commission.
And Mr. Coran, you second that?
I do.
You need a voice vote is good. Okay, any discussion? Please vote. And that motion passes with one abstention. And that was a lot easier than a lot of our elections. Item U is to appoint Alderperson Varsho to the Judiciary and License Committee, replacing former Alderperson Tompkins, and appoint Alderperson White as the alternate member of the Judiciary and License Committee, replacing Alderperson Varsho. Presented by me, but just to let you know, Mr. Varsho and Mr. White have both agreed to this. So, Ms. Dellis, your motion.
My motion is to appoint Mr. Varsho to the Licensing Judiciary and License Committee to replace Natasha and to appoint Mr. White as an alternate member of the licensing, there you go, of that.
Mr. Reigel, you second that?
I do.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Please vote. And that motion also passed within one abstention. Item B, items for future agendas. Mr. Coran, you're up first.
Like to add an update or get an update on the strategic plan that's been worked on just to see where we're at. I would like to also have some type of presentation or something read into the public record about addresses for comment period. It seems like it's been a common complaint, and in the society we live in, there might be some validity to suppressing addresses, and then adding our camping ordinance to the next meeting.
And Mr. Giles, you're next.
Yeah, I would like to address, I've had quite a few citizens complain about the fiber optic cables, and I believe they probably talked to you on that, Steve, through Frontier and mainly through the subcontractor. I've had people tell me that the phone number that they were given was not working, so if we could find a way to address that.
And that may have already been addressed, but we'll follow that. Mr. White.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about, or maybe we can draft and fix this ordinance with the parkland dedication fees. And I don't know, maybe even outside of that ordinance to come up with a procedure for what happens, when we want to collect these fees for development.
And Mr. Fire.
I'd like to see us bring back the house removal on 2nd Street on the 200 block or across the street from the community center. I get people asking me if they can, why we aren't allowing them to have the weeds as tall as the house almost. So, and when we do this, I want to make sure that our building inspector is here to answer the questions, because I don't think that if it's a personal property, we don't have any problem with asbestos or anything. So let's have him bring it to us. And people are asking me, like I said, how can they have it done, and they're going to write us for having it. So let's bring it back, please.
Okay. Seeing no more, we'll move on to item W, which is to adjourn to a closed session under Wisconsin Statutes, Chapter 19.485, Turn 1E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically negotiating parameters for real estate offers on 4 Wisconsin DOT-funded street projects, and to request repurchase of property located in the Daniels Addition, and closed session under Wisconsin Statute, Chapter 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercise responsibility, specifically city administrator's performance review. Ms. Dallas, your motion?
Motion to adjourn to a closed session.
Okay, Mr. Graham seconds that.
Yes.
Please vote. And we are in closed session. Thank you to all the staff that stayed for the whole meeting so far, and I'm sorry that some of you have to stay longer.